Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that will change your life forever. Do this once, and I promise you, toxic people will never bother you again. Let me tell you something real. One of the biggest reasons toxic people keep coming back into your life, keep messing with your peace, keep trying to break you down, is because you haven't realized your own worth yet. When you don't know who you are, when you don't value yourself, you'll accept anything. You'll accept the lies, you'll accept the disrespect, you'll accept the inconsistency, and you'll keep making excuses for people who wouldn't even go one step for you while you out here running miles for them. That's not love. That's not kindness. That's you looking for validation from people who don't even validate themselves. You keep trying to prove something to people who don't matter. You keep explaining yourself to folks who ain't even listening. Why? Because deep down, you think their opinion of you is going to define who you are. And I get it. We all want to be liked. We all want to be accepted. We all want someone to say, hey, you're enough. But here's the truth. You are enough already. You don't need anybody else to tell you that to make it real. The moment you understand that, everything changes. The moment you wake up and say, I'm done begging people to see me, that's the moment toxic folks lose their grip on you. They only got power because you keep handing it to them. When you know your worth, you stop chasing people who walk away. You stop arguing with folks who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop letting people treat you like an option. Because now you've learned to treat yourself like a priority. You've started to love yourself in a way that makes others uncomfortable, and that's okay. You ain't for everybody. Not everyone is going to clap for you. Not everyone is going to love you right. But guess what? You don't need them to. You just need you to. You've got dreams. You've got potential. You've got something inside you that's too valuable to be wasted on people who don't respect it. When you stop seeking validation, you start living in truth. You start making decisions that serve your soul instead of your insecurities. You stop asking, what will they think? And start asking, is this good for me? That's power, that's control, that's freedom. Because now the noise don't matter. The gossip don't matter. The shade they throw, it don't hit the same. Because you're too busy shining. Toxic people thrive in places where you're uncertain, where you're unsure, where you're still looking for permission to be who you are. But when you're solid in yourself, they can't get in. They try, but it don't work because confidence don't argue with chaos. Confidence just walks away. And confidence don't come from applause. It comes from knowing deep down, I'm not for sale. I'm not desperate. I'm not bending just to fit in your broken world. Let me break it down for you. The people who truly love and respect you don't need to be convinced. They don't need to be chased. They show up. They support. They add to your peace. And when you finally realize your worth, you start attracting people who match it. That's why knowing your worth is the key to getting rid of toxic energy. Because the moment you raise your standards, anybody who can't meet them will remove themselves. You won't even have to say a word. They'll feel it. They'll see the change. And they'll either rise up or fall off. So stop waiting for someone to tell you who you are. Stop giving people the pen to write your story. You already got the ink. You already got the power. All you got to do is believe it. You're not broken. You're not too much. You're not hard to love. You're just finally starting to see your own reflection clearly. And that right there, that's the beginning of a life that's no longer controlled by toxic people. Let me tell you something that'll change the way you deal with people forever. If you want peace in your life, If you're tired of toxic folks walking in and out of your space like they own it, then you've got to do one thing: set some boundaries. And not just set them, stick to them. No explaining, no apologizing, no backing down because you feel guilty. That guilt, that's the trick. That's how they keep control. They make you feel like saying no means you're being selfish. But let me ask you this. Since when did protecting your peace become selfish? The reason toxic people keep showing up is because they know you won't draw the line, or if you do draw it, they know you'll erase it the second they pout, argue, or guilt trip you. You got to stop doing that. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, by what you tolerate, by what you let slide. And every time you let someone cross your boundary without consequence, you're giving them permission to keep doing it. Look, setting boundaries doesn't make you mean. It makes you smart. It means you finally learn that your energy has value, that your time is sacred, that your heart isn't a free-for-all. And once you understand that, you stop letting people pull you in 10 different directions. You stop picking up the phone for drama. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who don't deserve access to your mind. You stop breaking your back trying to please everybody, because now you realize that pleasing everybody comes at the cost of losing yourself. And that's too expensive. People are going to be upset when you change. They're going to call you distant. They're going to say you've changed. And guess what? You have. That's the point. You're no longer available for things that drain you. You're not that same person who lets folks walk all over. You're not a doormat. You're a door. And doors get closed when respect isn't being shown. Let me give it to you straight. The people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. They won't take it personal when you say, I can't do that today, or I need some time to myself. You know who gets offended by boundaries? The ones who were benefiting from you having none. They don't want you to change because the old version of you was easier to manipulate. You gave too many chances. You said yes too much. You made them comfortable while you stayed uncomfortable, but not anymore. The moment you draw that line, it sends a message. I'm not for the taking. I'm not always available. I'm not going to shrink myself so you can feel big. That kind of strength scares toxic people because now they can't play the same game. Now they have to deal with a version of you that doesn't beg, doesn't explain, doesn't chase. And here's the real test. Can you set that boundary and not fold when the pushback comes? Because trust me, it will. They'll test it. They'll try to guilt you. They'll say you're cold. They'll bring up the past. But you got to stand firm, because if you give in once, they'll know the line was never real. Boundaries aren't suggestions. They're decisions. And if you make that decision, you better stand on it like it's concrete. Don't let guilt talk you into staying in situations you've outgrown. Don't let fear keep you in places that rob you of peace. You have every right to protect your energy, your space, your heart, and your mind. That's not being cold. That's being clear. And when you get clear, when you draw that line and stop moving it, every time someone complains, you'll notice something powerful. Peace shows up, and toxic people walk out, not because you pushed them, but because you finally stood still and told them, this is as far as you go. Let me give you something most folks don't understand. Silence is power. In a world where everybody wants to be loud, where people think the one who talks the most wins, let me tell you the truth. The strongest move you'll ever make is no move at all. The loudest response you can ever give to a toxic person is your silence. Because when you don't react, you don't feed the fire, you starve it. You take back control. Toxic people want a reaction. That's their whole game. They'll push your buttons, twist your words, create chaos just to get you to react. They want you to yell, to break down, to defend yourself, because as long as you're reacting, they still got you on a string. They're not looking for a conversation. They're looking for control. And every time you react emotionally, you hand them the remote to your peace. You give them access to your mind, your mood, your energy. That's a high price to pay for someone who doesn't even care about your well-being. You've got to learn how to master your emotions. That don't mean you're heartless. That don't mean you don't care. That just means you're no longer going to let people drag you into a storm just because they're used to chaos. Let them talk. Let them lie. Let them gossip. Let them twist the story. You ain't got to explain yourself to everybody. You don't need to clear your name in every room you're not even standing in. It's the waste of your time and your spirit. When you choose silence, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. You're saying, I don't need to prove anything to you. I know who I am. You're saying your opinion of me doesn't change my value. That's strength. Because it takes real discipline to stay calm when everything in you wants to clap back, when you want to defend yourself, when you want to say you got the wrong one today. But that calmness, that control, that's how you win. Every single time. You ever notice how some folks can't handle your silence? That's because it takes away their power. When you stop reacting, you stop participating in their drama. And when you stop participating, you force them to sit with themselves. You hold up a mirror without even speaking, and they don't like what they see, but that ain't your problem. That's their reflection. Let them deal with it. Silence also gives you space to think, to breathe, to observe. When you step back and don't react, you start to see who people really are. You start noticing patterns. You realize who's draining your energy and who's adding to your peace. And most importantly, you realize you don't have to show up to every argument you're invited to. Some battles are won by walking away, not by raising your voice. People will say you've changed. People will say you're distant. That's fine. Let them talk. Because silence will protect you in ways words never could. Sometimes the best clap back is no clap back at all. Just peace, just quiet, just a closed door that never reopens. Because not every situation deserves your energy. Not every person deserves your attention. And here's what'll happen when you master this. You'll start sleeping better. You'll start thinking clearer. You'll stop carrying the weight of other people's nonsense. That peace you've been praying for, it comes when you stop letting toxic people pull you into their circus. You're not a clown. You're not a puppet. You're not here to entertain somebody's chaos. So the next time somebody tries to bait you, test you, or pull you into drama, remember this. You don't have to respond to prove your power. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. Because silence, that's where your strength lives. And the people who are only around to stir your emotions, they'll fade out on their own once they realize you're no longer playing the game. Let me break something down for you that took me years to learn. Your energy is everything. It's your fuel, your focus, your fire. You can have the biggest dreams, the best intentions, and the strongest work ethic. But if your energy is being drained by the wrong people, you won't go nowhere. See, not everybody in your life deserves front row seats. Some people, They belong all the way in the balcony, if you let them in at all. You got to learn how to protect your space like your life depends on it, because it does. There are people who come into your life like sunshine. They lift you, they push you, they believe in you. And then there are people who show up like a storm. You know the type. Every time they call, it's drama. Every time they show up, it's gossip. Every conversation leaves you tired, frustrated, confused, or questioning yourself. These are the energy drainers. They don't refill your cup. They just keep taking sips out of it until you're empty and they're still thirsty. And sometimes those people are family. Sometimes they're old friends. Sometimes they're folks you grew up with, folks you love. That makes it hard. I get that. But let me tell you something. Love without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Just because you've known someone for years doesn't mean they're meant to go where you're going next. And just because someone helped you once doesn't mean they get to drain you forever. There's a difference between loyalty and self-neglect. Stop confusing the two. You don't have to make a big scene. You don't have to cut people off with anger. You just quietly start pulling back. You stop giving them unlimited access to your mind, your heart, and your time. You learn how to protect your peace without making a public announcement. Not every disconnection has to come with a declaration. Sometimes you just grow in silence, and the people who can't come with you, they fall away naturally. One thing about energy drainers, they always want more. You give advice, they don't listen. You show up, they don't appreciate it. You sacrifice, they still complain. That's because they're not looking for support, they're looking for a source. And once they find out you're always available, they treat you like a battery they can plug into whenever they're running low. That's not a relationship. That's a transaction. And you can't build a peaceful life in the middle of transactions that leave you depleted. You have to start treating your time and energy like currency. You wouldn't hand your paycheck to someone who constantly wasted. So why are you giving your energy to people who constantly disrespect it? You only get so much in a day. If you give it all to folks who drain you, what's left for your goals? What's left for your growth? What's left for your own healing and peace? Nothing. That's why some of y'all feel tired all the time. It ain't your schedule, it's your circle. Start paying attention to how you feel after interacting with people. If every time you talk to someone, you leave feeling smaller, less confident, more anxious, more confused, that's a sign. That's your spirit saying this connection is costing too much. Listen to that. Trust that. You don't need to fix everybody. You don't need to carry people who refuse to walk. You're not a dumping ground. You're not a therapist for folks who won't even help themselves. You've got too much destiny on your name to be held back by people who aren't even trying. Let them go. You're not abandoning them. You're choosing you. And once you start limiting access to the folks who drain you, you'll feel lighter. You'll think clearer. You'll move faster. And most of all, you'll realize that peace was never about adding more. It was always about removing what never belonged in the first place. Let me tell you something that'll set you free if you really let it sink in. You don't need to be liked by everybody. That's right. Read that again. You do not need everybody to like you. That mindset, that desire to be liked and accepted by every single person around you, that's the reason so many people stay stuck, exhausted, and surrounded by toxic folks. You bending over backward trying to please people who ain't even thinking about you when you're not around. That's no way to live. That's a slow death of your self-respect. See, people-pleasing is a trap. It's rooted in fear. The fear of rejection, the fear of judgment, fear of being misunderstood. But let me tell you something. You can do everything right and still be disliked by the wrong people. You can be kind, generous, loyal, and still someone's going to talk about you behind your back. Someone's going to twist your words. Someone's going to dislike you just because your confidence makes them uncomfortable. That's life. So stop shrinking yourself for approval. Stop editing yourself just to fit into spaces that were never meant for you in the first place. You've got to detach from the need to be liked and start focusing on something way more important, self-respect. That means waking up every day and knowing you're walking in truth. That means setting standards and not lowering them just because someone else feels entitled to your time or energy. That means knowing when to walk away, even if it means people talk, even if it means they don't understand, because your peace is not up for public opinion. You don't owe anyone your silence just to make them comfortable. I know it ain't easy, especially if you're the kind of person who's always been the peacemaker, always been the one who held things together. You care deeply, you love hard, and you want everyone to be okay. But the truth is sometimes you got to stop trying to be liked and start choosing yourself. There's power in being able to stand alone, to look in the mirror and say, I may not be for everyone, but I'm finally for me. Let me break it down. The people who truly matter, the ones who genuinely care for you, they'll respect you even when you tell them no. They won't disappear when you draw a boundary. They won't turn on you when you stop being available 24/7. It's the ones who were only there for what you can give them that'll fall off. And that's not a loss. That's a blessing. Sometimes rejection is really protect. Sometimes losing people is how you find yourself. The more you chase approval, the more power you give away. You start measuring your worth by other people's opinions. And let me tell you something. Opinions change like the wind. Today they love you. Tomorrow they're judging you for the same thing they once praised. That's why you've got to root your identity in something stronger than popularity. You've got to build your foundation on self-respect, because self-respect don't waver. Self-respect don't disappear when people start gossiping. Self-respect stands tall when everything else feels shaky. You'll notice something powerful. When you stop trying to be liked, you start attracting the right kind of people, the ones who love you for who you really are, the ones who don't need you to pretend, and most importantly, you start liking yourself more. You walk taller, you breathe easier, you stop overthinking every little thing. Why? Because you're not performing anymore. You're just being real, and being real, that's the most powerful thing you can ever be. So stop giving discounts on your worth just to get fake applause. Stop changing your stripes just to fit in with folks who don't even know who they are. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be respected, especially by yourself. And once you figure that out, toxic people stop having any kind of hold on you. Let me give you something real simple but real powerful. Who you surround yourself with matters more than almost anything else in your life. If you're trying to rise, if you're trying to grow, if you're trying to live a life of peace, joy, and success, then you better check your circle, because your environment will either push you forward or pull you under. And too many folks are trying to build a future while standing in the middle of people who don't believe in nothing but yesterday. See, when you're around people who uplift you, something happens inside you. You start thinking bigger. You start walking different. You carry yourself with a certain light because you know deep down you're not alone. You got people who support your vision, who speak life into you, who call you higher even when you feel low. That kind of energy is rare. That kind of energy is sacred. And you don't get that by accident. You get that by being intentional about who you allow into your life. Now, on the flip side, if you're always around folks who complain, who criticize, who gossip, who laugh at your dreams, guess what? That stuff rubs off on you. I don't care how strong you are, you become what you're surrounded by. You hang around 5 bitter people, you're going to be the 6th. You stay around 5 dreamers, you'll find yourself dreaming too. That's not just motivation, that's life. The problem is too many of us hold on to people out of habit. Just because you've known somebody for 10 years don't mean they still deserve access to your energy today. Some people were part of your story, but they're not meant to be part of your future. And if you keep dragging old characters into a new chapter, don't be surprised when the story doesn't change. You gotta start asking, does this person fuel me or drain me? Do they celebrate me or just tolerate me? Do they make me feel strong or do they keep me questioning myself? You've got to build a circle that feeds your soul. People who are not intimidated by your growth. People who don't try to compete with you, but complete you. People who aren't threatened when you shine, but clap for you when you win. That's the kind of crew that'll help you rise. That's the kind of people who make life lighter, not heavier. And if you haven't found them yet, don't lower your standards just to keep company. Sometimes you got to be alone for a season so you can attract what you truly deserve. And here's the truth. Uplifting people aren't always loud. They're not always the ones cheering the loudest on social media. Sometimes it's that quiet friend who checks in when nobody else does. Sometimes it's that mentor who tells you the truth you didn't want to hear but needed to. Sometimes it's that person who believes in you even when you stop believing in yourself. That's gold right there. That's the kind of support that changes lives. When you get around the right people, you stop settling, you stop doubting, you stop playing small just to make other people comfortable. You step into who you were created to be. You start thinking bigger. You start praying bolder. You start moving like somebody who knows they've got purpose on their life. And that's when everything begins to shift. So stop begging to be seen by the wrong people. Stop waiting for validation from folks who can't even see your value. Your tribe is out there. The ones who lift your chin when your head is down. The ones who won't let you give up when life gets hard. Make room for them. Protect your energy for them. And when you find them, keep them close, because when you surround yourself with the right people, toxic folks don't even stand a chance.